Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Silver Savage podcast. This is BK, and today I'm going to discuss a topic that I do believe I am qualified, uniquely qualified to discuss. Not that I am the only one that does it, but I've been doing it long enough that hopefully I can share some lessons with those of you who are thinking about taking that path or maybe are in that path and may need a little guidance. And today's topic is entrepreneurship. So let's get right into it, right? So, first of all, entrepreneurship, right? The idea of working for yourself, the idea of being your own boss, setting your own time, and honestly, coming with your own ideas and following through, right? It is very appealing to a lot of people, but I do have to caution you, it is not for everybody. Because although you do own all of your successes and you do see the good and the benefit in all you do, it's not always all sunshines and rainbows. And there's going to be times when things are going to be really, really hard, or sometimes you will fail and not succeed. And you have to own all of those as well. And if you are one of those that has the poor ability to manage the stress, the anxiety, right, and everything that comes with it, including your relationships with your loved ones, with your families, with your friends, with your employees, right, and customers, it's probably not for you. Because if you're going to let those hard times get in your way, or more importantly, get in the way of other relationships you have, then you have to really think deep and hard and say, is this really worth it, right? Is me going through those valleys, because I'll be honest, you're going to sense and feel a lot more valleys than peaks in this journey of entrepreneurship. And if I cannot manage those valleys to the point where they start affecting my marriage, they affect my relationship with my kids, with my friends, is it really what I need to do? So it's a decision that every person has to make for themselves. I'll be honest, with all those hard times that came along my journey, I could never see myself doing anything else, meaning working for a larger organization. Um, but I can see why not everybody will come to the same conclusion, and there is no harm in that. Entrepreneurship is unique, and mind you, you can take that same entrepreneurship spirit and apply working for somebody else. You can still come with ideas, you can still own the successes of those ideas, you can still grow within that company. Uh, the only thing is, you're probably not gonna be able to call all the shots. On the flip side, you also are not going to be solely responsible for all the failures. So if something doesn't go quite right, it's not your own personal bank account, your own personal relationships that suffer, right? There's a big organization above you. So it is something that you should certainly consider before you make that leap and that jump. That said, I hope that you do feel that entrepreneurship is something you want to pursue. And I will tell you that I've been reading a bunch of statistics on it. I can't tell you the exact numbers because they keep conflicting, but the majority of our economy is driven by entrepreneurs. The idea is that it's our small and medium businesses that actually drive most commerce, which is really beneficial to everybody as a whole, right? So if you're thinking of getting into entrepreneurship, whatever field that may be, know that you are in good company. You are part of millions that do the same thing, and we all share the same challenges and the same successes, and we're all part of a bigger machine, right? We're all just little cogs in the machine, but we get to do it on our own terms, which is, again, in my mind, priceless. So how do you get into it to begin with? Nah, it's not like I'm waking up one morning and say, I just want to work for myself, right? Most entrepreneurs will tell you that they saw a need, they saw something that they wanted to fix, oftentimes for themselves. Right? A lot of merchandise, a lot of people that sell products, it started with them seeing a need for a unique product that they couldn't find in the market. And they said, well, I'm just going to make it. For those of us in the service industry, very similar, right? We wanted to get a service, or people mentioned to us that they wanted to get a service that was not available, or not available to a level that we thought is the right one, and we decided to go into it. I'll give you an example. Richard Branson, the gentleman that owns Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records, Virgin everything pretty much, right? He always said that he does not necessarily know everything about all the products and services that he offers, but he saw a need and he realized that he can do it better and he figured I'll give it a try. Virgin Atlantic, his airline, is a perfect example. It's like, I know nothing about airlines, but I fly a lot, and I know the way that I've been flying, the experiences that I've had, I know it can be done better. And he got some very smart people working for him, and he tasked them with creating that perfect experience, and that's what he said to do, and that's what he did. So essentially, he saw a need, and he decided to pursue that need. For myself personally, I was approached to teach self-defense. I realized that at the time there weren't true, realistic self-defense schools. There's a lot of martial arts, which are very traditional. Mixed martial arts was becoming big, so there's a lot of sports oriented. But if you're an individual concerned about your safety and wanted to really learn real life application, so anything from recognizing human behavior, the skill set obviously of self-defense, everything that surrounds it, from medical care to driving to any other element of it, that wasn't offered. And I saw an opportunity, and I figured I'm going to pursue it. And I've been fortunate and lucky enough to really grow a gym that started with about 20 members to close to 200 at the first iteration. We went through a few different evolutions, but it's always a continuous growth. So, really, what problem do you want to solve? This is your first question if you want to go into entrepreneurship. How can you help others, right? And what makes you unique? What makes you qualified to do that, right? Why you and not somebody else, right? For me, again, I'm going to use myself as an example for most of this. That's the point. Being a combat veterans for the Israeli military that learned a variety of different systems, and I am a first responder in America, I saw a need to teach realistic self-defense and other tactical disciplines, including, as I mentioned, everything that surrounds it, as medical and so forth. And very few people share my background. There are not a lot of combat veterans from Israel who are first responders in the United States, who are medics, who are police officers, know the skill set, and are good instructors, right, that can offer what I do. So that's what made me unique, and I hope at least that my students, whether being members of my gym or organizations that we work with, recognize that, see that, and that's why they come to us. So for you, whatever it is that you want to offer, whether being a product or service, what problem are you solving? How can you help others, right? Okay, so it cannot be egocentric. It's got to be about helping others, because otherwise it will not work. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. And what makes you uniquely qualified to deliver that service or to make that product? So that is the question you want to start. When you get started, right? Understand that initially you don't have to go all in, right? So when I started Masada Tactical, I was still employed by the state of Maryland as a defensive tactics instructor, and it was, for lack of a better term, a side gig. It got to a point where they were kind of even, right? What I was making financially from working for the state and what the gym was generating was kind of the same. And I had to figure out which one I want to concentrate on. Because honestly, if you want your entrepreneurship venture to grow, you have to commit to it. And at some point, you will have to cut the safety net. So for me, the state job was a safety net. It was a guaranteed job, benefits, right? And as long as that was in the background, I could not commit 100% to my business because I wasn't dependent on it. So it would never reach the level of growth that I needed it to, because if I needed to grow, I need to be vested in it 100%. And that means that there is no other solution for me. If I did not succeed, if I did not put 100%, there is no other income coming in. There is no benefits from somewhere else. There's nobody else paying my bills, my rent, or putting food on my table. So it was all about cutting the safety nets and committing 100%. Again, going to what I started with, saying that this is not for everybody, it is extremely stressful. It is a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, but arguably that's also what drives creativity, right? And when you have no other options, you have to make it work. You make it work. And again, I was fortunate enough to be able to concentrate my efforts and see the business grow and recognize new opportunities and aggressively pursue them, so I could let my state job go and not be dependent on it anymore. So that is the next step for you in entrepreneurship. So again, you're gonna decide what you want to do, why you want to do it, what makes you uniquely qualified. You can start as a side gig, but at some point, if you're doing anything else, you have to cut that safety net, and you just gotta be 100% over 100% if that's mathematically possible, right? Just go into it, dive into it, and make it work. At some point, you're going to have to surround yourself with people that augment your shortcomings. I'll be the first one to admit I am a good tactician. I would like to think I'm a good instructor. I let my students uh, say yay or nay. Okay, I cannot speak for them, but I am not the best business manager from an administrative standpoint, right? There are people that are better than me in creating budgets and profit and loss charts and coming up with projections, right? Or even just human resource stuff and managing employees, right? So at some point, you're going to have to surround yourself with the right people. There are two schools of thought about this, and well, I'll tell you both of them, and then I'll tell you the one that I do prescribe to. So the one says that you at some point will have to transition from being the tactician to being a business owner. At some point, you're gonna have to. So if you were me, you would have to stop teaching at some point, or traveling as much, or being in front of classes all the time, and you would have to start taking a backseat in the office and just manage a company, manage a business, right? You have to develop other people that can do what you do so you don't have to keep doing it and you can concentrate on the business side. That is option number one. Option number two is recognizing I am not going to enjoy being in office. I do not want to sit in office. That is not what I'm good at. So I will just keep doing what I'm doing and I will put other people whom I trust to navigate those areas, right? And my personal preference is a hybrid approach, as it's mostly the case, right? It will never be 100% one or the other. I still love teaching. I still feel that I can teach, although getting older, just turned 48. I can still run and gun and lift with most people and be competitive at it. So I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I can. And for to that end, I do hire the right people to support me. So Michael is helping me with everything that has to do with administration and development of the business, right? We have a designer. Allison is phenomenal in helping us with the marketing. We have additional instructors that help me take some load off of me, right? But I cannot just let go and go and sit in an office for 8 to 12 hours a day and completely let go of being the tactician, right? I will say that as I get older, I do recognize that it does get harder, right? Traveling, for example, next month, I'll be gone 3 weeks out of the month. That is a big number. That's a large amount of time. I will not be seeing my wife, my kids. I will not be sleeping in my bed, right? And I will not be able to be engaged on a daily basis with the business. So that is a lot. So at some point, that has to come down to some extent. And I'm going to give you some recommendations later down, some books, some resources that you should read. But one of them is going to be a book called Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz, which will essentially help you set up the processes so you can get to a point where you can take 4 weeks off of your business. And I was talking to Michael when we both read the book, and I did tell him that my goal, September of 2024, so a year from now, I want to take 4 weeks off. We'll see if it works or it doesn't, but that's a goal. Getting the right people in the right places so they can do it and not everything be hinged on me as the business owner or the one that started it, right? So surround yourself with people who augment your shortcomings, right? Let others help you. You should still be, as the business owner and the entrepreneur that started it, the one that charts the course, right? You know the vision, you know where you want to go, what you want to accomplish, but let others help you get the boat there. Okay, you don't have to be the skipper and the mechanic and the navigator all the time. Let other people who do those individual tasks better than you help you out, right? Next phase is seek mentorship and guidance, right? Coaching. I talked about it a lot in the last few episodes. I'm a big fan. I started being coached by a bunch of people. Arguably, I started too late. So I learned from my mistake. I waited too long. That's what I meant to say. Because first of all, there's a cost associated. They like, do I really need that cost? They don't really know my industry. They don't really know what I do, what I deal with on a daily basis, right? Everybody thinks they're unique. So I waited, and if there's one thing that I could have changed is as soon as I started my business, 15 years ago, I should have hired a coach to help me uh, avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I end up learning on my own, but probably could have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money in the process. There's a lot of mistakes that after the fact I learned I didn't have to make. So if you are serious about running your own business, seek others that have been there, done that, and can teach you, mentor you, coach you, um, to avoid those, right? As a coach myself, one thing I always tell those who seek my advice is I don't have all the answers, and every coach that is worth their salt will tell you the same thing. We don't have all the answers, but we made enough mistakes. We've been in the game long enough to where hopefully we can prevent you from making some of the mistake and shorten your curve. So you don't have to go for 15 years till your business gets to a point where mine is. You can do it a lot faster because you don't have to make the same mistakes that I've made. So if you have the ability, certainly seek mentorship, coaching. There's a lot of good coaches out there. Do your research. One thing I found out over the past couple of years, and again, I've worked with a few different coaches right now, but what I found over the past few years is not all coaches are created equal. A lot of them look very appealing and attractive online. So you look at their Instagram pages or social media, and they all drive Rolls Royces and fly airplanes and seem to be living the life and they've made it, right? But first of all, you don't know if that's necessarily true, and B, you don't know if they're a right fit for you. Um, I started with some coaches. I got out of working with some coaches. I started with other coaches, and I am finally at a place where I am following people and asking advice from people who I respect, whose answers resonate with me, who can help me truly grow. And I have seen the results of it manifested in my business. Um, so certainly something you should seek. And a little shameless plug here: if you do want coaching, don't forget that we do offer that as well through our coaching company, Get Elevated Coaching. So if it's something that we can help with, certainly reach out. Especially if you are in any kind of self-defense, martial arts, tactical discipline as a business owner, and the two are not always the same, right? Being a business owner and running a martial arts school, or being a martial art instructor. So if we can help, certainly reach out. Um, Listen, it's gonna get rough, very rough at times, right? And at that point, what you need to remember is your why. Why did you start doing what you're doing? What did the good times feel like? Again, remember, it's gonna be more valleys than peaks. But if you can remember what the peaks felt like, a person that you helped that sent you an email that said you saved their life because of skill you taught them. I happen to have received two of those past last month. If you go on my social media, you'll see them. One of them was a law enforcement officer who survived being stabbed following skill sets that we taught him. And another one was a member whose relative got a severe traumatic injury, and he knew how to address that medically because of a class he attended by us. So those are some of my whys, right? The idea that these people are alive or successful in keeping other people alive because of skills we taught them. And at the end of the world, what greater reward is it? Another why of mine is just provide my family with the lifestyle that they deserve, in my mind, right? That life of abundance that everybody talks about. Not that I do not, uh, I always say I don't want private airplanes and drive Rolls Royces and stuff like that, right? But it's not that I have a problem with the monetary element of it. I just think there's better use for it in my mind. There's other things I would like to accomplish if I had that same amount of money. Uh, and a lot of them is just setting up my family for success, right? We see social, politically, economically what is going on out there. And I want to make sure my kids do not have to stress over it when they go to college or after college, if they decide to go to college, right? Okay, if they want to start a business, if they want to start a family. I don't want them having the same challenges and battles that I have. So that is some of my whys, right? And obviously, I have the monetary whys as well. There is some. some luxuries, for lack of a better term, that I would like to accomplish, and I know that my chances of accomplishing those are higher working for myself than working for the men. So when you hit those rough times, which you will, we all do, and this also goes for those of you that are not entrepreneurs, right? For those of you that work for other organizations or companies, there's going to be times where it's going to get shitty, and you're going to be like, why the hell am I doing this? And those are the times you have to remember why you started doing it to begin with and reassess, right? I'm not saying that it's always right, but if it still resonates, if the reason you started still makes sense to you, right? So I'm going to use a perfect example. Let's say a police officer. Policing changed a lot over the past couple of years, certainly a decade, and even longer, right? It always evolves, it always changes. And let's say you came into policing 10 years ago and been through all the political changes and all the political correctness and social issues that came with it, and you're getting disenchanted with being a police officer. So you need to take a step back and say, okay, why did I become a cop to begin with? Is that still something that resonates with me? And if so, I should keep going and I should just figure out how to make it work. I can't just give up. Okay, if I wanted to help people, if I just wanted to run and gun and I wanted to be on a SWAT team or a narcotics task team, right? If that's what I wanted to do and that's still something I want to do, then I need to learn how to work within the system to make that work, right? But don't let the rough times stop you from accomplishing your goals. As I promised earlier, I told you I will leave you with some books that I recommend. There is a lot of them, I'll be honest, so I'm going to limit it to 5 recommendations. So if you're an entrepreneur, and again, even if you're not, but certainly if you're an entrepreneur and you want to invest a little more in yourself, figure out a little more on how to be better at what you do and how to transition from a tactician to a business owner, or how to juggle the two, I highly recommend you read this. So I already mentioned Mike Michalowicz. He wrote a bunch of books, including Pumpkin Patch, Get Different. I also already mentioned Clockwork, and the last one that I truly enjoyed is Profit First. It really talks about how to pay yourself, because as entrepreneurs we tend to pay everybody else. Certainly been guilty of it for years, and not taking any money myself. Right, it's either went back into the company or went to pay others before I paid myself. I'm always historically I've always been the lowest paid individual in my company. Um, it's not sustainable as an entrepreneur. It's not something that you can do for too long. And in this book, Profit First, Mike Michalowicz teaches you how to set yourself accounting wise to be able to pay yourself and scale your company and keep growing it. So I highly recommend that to anybody who is starting a business. Certainly do it from the get-go. It's going to be the easiest way. But even if you already have a company, and especially if you're in financial kind of distress right now, read the book. I will give you steps to reassess, reevaluate, and reprioritize, set up the right processes, and hopefully grow it from there. Again, the other one that I like by him is Clockwork, just putting up the processes in place. A lot of nuggets in that book, even if you do not want to take 4 weeks off your company. But if you do decide at some point you don't want to be a slave to your company, certainly a great book. The next one I mentioned in a prior podcast as well it is The Gap and the Gain. Okay, it is by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. The Gap and the Gain essentially talks about how to navigate the daily tasks and concentrates on the stuff you accomplish and not get hooked on the stuff that you did not accomplish or you missed. Maybe you had on your to-do list a bunch of stuff and you didn't necessarily get to it, right? So the book teaches you how concentrating on the gains is so much more important, how that will teach you to keep moving forward, stay positive, and ultimately get a much more significant growth in your company. The next one is The Talent Code. I will tell you the author right now. The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. If you are a coach and instructor, and understand we are all coaches, even it is just training our employees or working with our kids, we're all coaches. So it teaches you how talent is developed. You don't have to be a naturally gifted individual. How can it be developed by everybody, any talent, and how can I teach it better to others? So the Talent Code is one that I certainly think is a must. The next one is one that has been spoken about in length by a bunch of people, not just me. Anybody out there pretty much read this book or talks about this book, and that is Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is by James Clear. Um, we all have issues with either getting rid of some habits that are not helpful or beneficial to us, or developing new habits that are more beneficial to us. This book really teaches you how to identify those, how to tag them. So, for example, if I know that every time I eat a salty meal, I want something sweet, but I want to cut down on the amount of sweets I eat, then how to recognize those tags and substitute. Doesn't mean I stop eating salty meals. It means that I know I'm going to want something sweet, and maybe I'm preemptive in setting something else out there that is not a gallon bucket of ice cream, right? So Atomic Habits will really set you up to have the processes and the skills to get your days going the way you should. And the last one is one that I've been reading. I just finished it recently, and it's more um, esoteric in a sense, and I mean that because the book is called Breath, and it's essentially how you breathe, right? And how a lot of our ailments are because we're breathing wrong. And he mentions a lot of, by the way, the author is James Nestor. He talks a lot about how evolutionary our breathing has changed, because as human beings we started eating wrong, we started concentrating on the wrong things, we started compensating in other mechanisms, and our tracheas actually got smaller, our jaws got smaller, and we're breathing inefficiently and incorrectly. Aside for the medical side of it, as an entrepreneur, I took some breathing exercise out of it, which helped me significantly in managing my anxiety and stress. I would like to say that I meditate every day. I don't. It's a goal of mine. I think it's important. It's for everybody to meditate, just a few moments disconnecting from the world. I do also realize that we can't always do it. And I understand, I know it is why you prioritize. And if you want to prioritize meditation, you'll find the 5 to 10 minutes to do it. It's not a lot, it's not hard. But the day gets away from me. I can't meditate too early in the morning because I'm going to fall asleep. I'm too tired. During the day, I just get sidetracked all the time. I'm in an office with a lot of people, so getting 5 minutes of alone time actually does become very challenging. And at night, it's too late. Like I find, like meditating at night, I'm ready to go to bed. So I can meditate, but I can always do a breathing exercise. I can do those while I'm driving, right? I can do those in the office. People don't even realize that I'm doing breathing exercises sometimes. And there's a lot of scientific research that shows that it's very similar to meditation in the benefits. It's not quite the same, and certainly should not replace meditation. But if you're an entrepreneur that values your mental and emotional well-being, you should certainly take a little bit of time to concentrate on your breathing. So read Breath by James Nestor as well. So those are some of my nuggets in a short podcast, right? You are always welcome to reach out to me, as I mentioned many times before. I will give you advice and not charge you anything for it, because I want you to succeed, and because that's my why, right? That's why I started doing what I'm doing, is to help others. If you see value in what I'm doing and you want to hire me in the future, by all means, but certainly do not hesitate to reach out, even if you're not intending on doing that. I can name a few people that reach out to me that I sit with on a fairly regular basis to give them advice, and I find that extremely rewarding. So I do encourage you to reach out if you need anything. That is all I have for you for today. I hope you guys got some nuggets. Please do me a favor. If you found any value in today's episode, in today's podcast, please share it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We don't make any money out of this podcast. It is certainly just me sitting here by myself. We don't have any sponsors. The only way we make this worth our while is knowing that it gives benefits to others. So if you guys don't mind sharing it, send it to people that you think can benefit from it, subscribing to it, and interacting with us. That's probably the biggest thing. Send us a DM on Instagram or on our Facebook or LinkedIn pages, or even on YouTube, right? Because these are all also videos. Not that there's too much to see. I'm not even in my studio, which is why you hear this background. I am in my camper. which is my, I guess, satellite studio these days. But if you direct message us, just tell us one thing that you got out of today's podcast that you enjoy. Ask us a question that is not only showing us that you listened and got something out of it, but also gives us material and food for thought for future podcasts, so we can answer those questions that you have. I'm sure if you have a question, others have a similar question. As always, stay savage.